What exactly do you see wrong with a group of friends having fun? A grown man was on his knees for less than 2 minutes, and nobody tied him there. He could have stood up, walked away, or laughed with us, but instead he chose to make his silence the center of the room. I was not going to stop a perfect video because one sensitive person wanted everyone to protect his pride. In fact, I took the phone myself and asked for another take because the first one did not look funny enough. Owen only pressed 2 fingers against his wedding ring, the little habit he used whenever he had accepted that I was right. So hear the whole story before you judge me, and then tell me why his discomfort should have mattered more than everyone else's night. My name is Camilla Duarte. I was 34, and I directed creator partnerships for a family lifestyle company called Bright Nest. My job was to know what people would watch before they knew it themselves. 1 face, 2 seconds, a reason not to scroll. Be serious. That was not manipulation. It was attention, and attention paid for every beautiful room I entered. Owen Mercer had been my husband for 7 years. He designed accessibility systems for public venues, which meant he spent his days thinking about ramps, captions, quiet rooms, and doors that other people forgot. He was good at making space for people who never asked to be seen. He was less good at seeing me. That was my one complaint, and it was not invented. When my mother forgot my birthday for the 2nd year in a row, Owen did not hold me while I cried. He made a shared calendar and added reminders for every person in my family. When I lost a major client, he rebuilt my presentation template before I finished telling him how ashamed I felt. His answer to pain was always a tool. In the beginning, I loved that about him. During my first year at Bright Nest, I had to pitch a captioned video campaign to a room of executives. Owen sat on our floor until midnight, testing colors and timing every subtitle. He bought me a small red clip-on light for my phone because the office lighting made me look tired. The next morning, he stood outside the meeting room with 2 coffees and never asked whether his work had helped me win. It had. For years, we kept a private Sunday ritual. Owen recorded 10 seconds of our ordinary life. Me burning toast. Me dancing while I folded towels. Me asleep with a book on my chest. He saved each clip in a folder called Sundays and never posted one. He said an ordinary life deserved a record, even when nobody else wanted to watch it. I used to find that sweet. Then I began spending my days with people who could make 50,000 strangers care about a sandwich, and ordinary stopped sounding peaceful. It started sounding like a room where nobody turned when I entered. Brooke Ellis entered every room as if someone had already announced her. She ran a TikTok account called Room Rules with 4 of our friends. Their clips were built around social dares, dating tests, and public pranks. Brooke called them honest reactions. I called them useful. At a rooftop launch in May, she showed me a clip that had reached 6 million views in 2 days. A woman had asked her boyfriend to rank her friends, then read his answers aloud at dinner. Everyone in the video looked shocked. Everyone in the comments wanted a second part. Brooke said Bright Nest needed that kind of honesty. Family content had become too polished, and real couples were the next opening. Nina, my oldest friend, agreed before I did. Nina liked being near anything that grew quickly. She said Owen and I were perfect because I had energy, and he had the face of a man who had already apologized. I laughed. Of course I did. Owen was standing 3 steps away, checking whether the rooftop speakers had visual alerts for a deaf guest. He heard Nina. His fingers went to his ring. 2 fingers. 1 slow press. That meant surrender in our marriage. Later, while we waited for the elevator, he asked whether Bright Nest kept the original footage creators submitted or only the final edits. I told him compliance kept everything because companies were terrified of complaints. He asked whether releases were required for spouses too. Be serious, I said. He was my husband, not a stranger in the background. He asked if that was how consent worked at my company. The elevator arrived before I had to answer. Owen held the door for a woman using a cane, then followed me inside. He touched his ring again and looked at the floor numbers. I saw a man retreating from a conversation he could not win. Brooke saw content. 3 days later, She invited us to her loft to test a few harmless ideas. I intended to prove that Owen could be fun if he stopped protecting every feeling as if it needed a handrail. That was all. One evening, 2 cameras. A chance to show him the world did not collapse when people laughed. Brooke's loft smelled like vanilla spray and hot phone batteries. A white wall had been cleared for filming. Eli Grant adjusted a ring light while Nina arranged drinks on a low table. There were 6 of us, not counting Owen, and every person there had known him for years. That matters. These were not strangers attacking him. These were our friends trying to include him. The first game was simple. Brooke asked couples to point at the person who apologized first, earned more, or needed more attention. Owen refused the money question. I answered it for him and pointed at myself, even though his salary was higher after bonuses. The number was not the point. I had the visible career. People recognized my work. Eli asked who had married above their level. Everyone pointed at Owen. For half a second, he smiled. Not because it was funny. It was the small, polite smile he used when a waiter brought the wrong order. Nina said his face made the moment even better. Brooke moved closer and asked him to look disappointed again. Owen asked whether the camera was still recording. Brooke said they always kept the raw reactions because those were gold. He pressed his fingers against his ring. I told him not to turn a game into an audit. Be serious. It was the first test, and he was already behaving like the safety department. The safety department wrote to me the next morning. Leah Park managed creator standards at Brightnest. She sent a short message asking whether every person in Brooke's sample clip had signed a release. She named Owen in the second line. Not my husband. Owen Mercer. I called him during lunch and asked if he had complained to my company. He said he had asked a general question through the public creator form. He wanted to know what happened to original recordings when someone did not agree to be posted. I heard a child running to a teacher. He said the clip had included our income, our home, and a question he had refused. I told him nobody cared about his salary, and the video had not even been posted. He asked why a private boundary became less real when the camera stayed in draft mode. I said he was threatened because my work was growing beyond him. That ended the call. No anger, no defense. His silence made my answer feel stronger. Leah followed up twice. 1 message. 2 forms. A meeting request I moved into a folder for later. I had spent 6 years building creator relationships. I was not going to let a cautious manager treat my marriage like a workplace risk. Brooke understood. She said Owen was doing what quiet men always did when louder women became successful. They could not command the room, so they tried to control the rules around it. Nina said I had spent years shrinking my humor to protect him. That part sounded true enough to hurt. When I was 12, my older sister Valentina sang at every family party. Adults moved chairs to face her. They asked me to help pass plates because I was responsible and did not need attention. Once, I stood behind her with a paper flower in my hair and waited for someone to take my picture. Nobody did. Owen knew that story. He also knew I had promised myself I would never become background furniture again. But knowing a wound is not the same as touching it. He treated mine like a line in a manual. Brooke treated it like proof that I belonged in front of the camera. She suggested we build a full Brightnest pitch around real marriage humor. If the final video performed well, she would get a national creator contract, and I would lead the campaign. My vice president had been waiting for me to bring in one account big enough to justify a promotion. There was only one problem. The sample needed a stronger ending. I offered Owen a compromise that night. I said we would film one final piece at his birthday party, but he could approve the edit before anything went public. He asked why his birthday had become part of my pitch. I said because people would already be gathered and the scene would feel natural. He asked whether I wanted him at the party or wanted his reaction. That was the kind of question he asked when he wanted credit for being deep. I told him I wanted a husband who did not make everyone step around him. Then I placed the red clip light on the table between us and said he had once helped me get noticed. He could help again. His fingers touched the ring. 1 press. 2. He asked what the final piece involved. I said Brooke was still designing it. That was my first real lie. The group chat already contained a sketch of Owen on his knees. The rehearsal took place in a private party room above a restaurant. Brooke wanted to test angles without spoiling the birthday setup. She called it a closed set, although the bartender and 2 servers could see through the glass doors. Owen arrived directly from work. He wore a grey sweater and carried the bag with the portable caption screen he used for site visits. Brooke looked at the bag and said it made him seem even more obedient, like he had brought his own equipment to a punishment. Eli laughed first. Nina followed. I watched Owen's face. Nothing. That irritated me more than anger would have. Anger would have given the room heat. His calm made every joke wait for permission to land, and I was tired of him deciding the temperature by refusing to react. Brooke began with smaller shots. Owen carried everyone's coats to one side of the room. He held 4 gift bags while Eli pretended to search his pockets for money. Then Brooke asked him to stand behind me while the group voted on who controlled our marriage. Every hand pointed at me. I raised both arms. Nina placed a paper crown on my head. The bartender looked away, but the younger server smiled. That was enough. A room only needs one person willing to enjoy the right moment. Brooke asked Owen to kneel so we could fit the crown and his face into a vertical frame. He said no. Eli told him it was only blocking. He placed a folded cushion on the floor and tapped it with his shoe. Owen repeated that he did not want to kneel for a video. I told him we were already there. The room was booked. People had given their evening. Why should one man's mood waste everyone's time? He looked at me, not Brooke. He asked if I understood that he was saying no while the camera was recording. Be serious, I said. Nobody was putting a weapon to his head. Then I lowered my voice and told him not to embarrass me in front of my friends. That worked. Owen placed his work bag beside the wall and went down on one knee. The red clip light shone against his forehead. Brooke asked him to lower the other knee. I moved my hand downward until he obeyed. There was a clean little thrill in that gesture. I did not have to touch him. 5 people watched my hand, then watched my husband make himself smaller. For once, the room moved according to me without Owen slowing it with a question. Eli held a paper pointer under Owen's chin and asked him to look at his queen. Nina laughed, but not as loudly as before. Brooke told me to place one heel on the cushion beside his knee. I did. The camera made it look closer to him than it was. Owen looked directly into the phone. He stated that he had not agreed to the scene and asked whether Brooke saved the original recording. Brooke lowered the phone for a second. I took it from her. I said his refusal was the funniest part because viewers loved a serious man losing to a joke. Then I asked him to repeat the line with more feeling. Eli laughed so hard he leaned against the wall. Owen touched his ring. 2 fingers against the edge. His face went still. I read that stillness as the moment he understood he could not control us. Through the glass, the older server stopped arranging glasses and looked into the room. Her expression was not amused. For one strange second, I saw Owen from where she stood. A man on the floor under a red light, surrounded by people waiting for him to perform his own shame. The picture opened a door I did not want. I turned the phone toward myself and told the camera that marriage required a sense of humor. The server went back to the glasses. The door closed. Afterward, Owen asked for a quiet minute in the parking garage. The air smelled of rain and old concrete. He did not raise his voice. He asked why I had repeated his refusal for the camera instead of ending the scene. I told him I was trying to save the evening. He said I had not saved anything. I had converted his no into material. I reminded him that he had knelt by choice. He said choice made under a circle of friends was still a choice, but it showed him which person in that circle had decided his dignity was expensive. That sounded rehearsed. I told him so. He pressed his ring and asked me one last question. If a Bright Nest creator treated a stranger that way, would I approve the clip? I said spouses were different. He nodded once and walked to his car. Nina texted me before I reached home. She said the rehearsal had gone further than she expected. Brooke answered in the group chat that strong reactions always looked ugly before the edit. Eli sent a laughing face. One concern. 2 jokes. A final video still waiting to be made. I chose the majority. The next morning, I sent Brooke my campaign deck. The first slide promised unscripted trust. The final slide showed a forecast of 12 million views. I wrote that Owen's birthday version would be bigger because the room would be full and he would not want to make a scene. Leah declined the deck within an hour. She said the safety review remained incomplete. I went above her. My vice president, Martin, liked the numbers. He agreed to watch a private test stream from the birthday party. If it felt spontaneous without crossing company rules, he would consider moving the campaign forward. Brooke promised the stream link would go only to selected reviewers and a small audience sample. That was all I needed. At home, Owen slept in the guest room. He still made coffee for both of us, because practical care was the language he used when real language became difficult. Each morning, my cup waited under the machine. Each evening, he asked one calm question and accepted no answer. On Monday, he asked whether I had sent the rehearsal to work. I told him only a short sample. On Tuesday, he asked whether his refusal remained in it. I said viewers needed context. On Wednesday, he asked whether I would cancel the birthday filming. I told him the invitations had already gone out. 3 questions. 3 answers. Be serious. A marriage cannot survive if every decision becomes a moral hearing. Valentina came over on Thursday with a cake catalogue. She had offered to order Owen's cake because she still remembered the lemon one he bought when her son came home from the hospital. While we looked at designs, she asked why Brooke's invitation called the party a live creator event. I told her it was a joke. She asked whether Owen knew. I said he knew enough. My sister closed the catalogue. She said knowing a camera existed was not the same as agreeing to become the joke. Hearing that from Valentina irritated me. She had spent our childhood accepting every eye in the room as her natural property. Now she wanted to lecture me about attention. I told her she could skip the party if she planned to protect Owen from fun. She did not argue. She took her bag and left the catalogue on the sofa. That evening, I found Owen in the small office where he kept our Sunday clips. The folder was open on his screen. 7 years of ordinary moments sat in rows by date. He had copied them onto a separate drive, away from the folders Brooke and I used. He played one from our 2nd anniversary. I was standing in a grocery aisle, holding 2 jars of sauce and laughing because I could not choose. My face looked young. More than that, it looked unwatched. Owen said those clips belonged to us because I had trusted him not to make them public. The exact truth came close enough to touch. Privacy had once been part of his love. I was using access as proof that no boundary existed between husband and wife. Then he closed the folder without asking me to apologize. That coldness saved me from the thought. He always did this. He presented a fact, then withdrew before I could become human inside it. I decided the separate drive was another tool, another quiet punishment dressed as order. I told him he cared more about files than feelings. He said I might be right about that. For a moment, he looked tired rather than calm. His shoulders lowered. He said he had spent years solving things because he did not know how to stay in a room where someone was disappointed in him. He admitted that I had often asked for comfort and received a plan. There it was. My correct complaint. I expected him to follow it with a promise. Instead, he said his failure did not give my friends ownership of him. I offered what I called a fair solution. We would film the birthday scene, but he could approve the final cut before Brooke posted it. He asked whether he could stop the live before it began. I said no. Martin was expecting it. He asked whether my promotion mattered more than his answer. I told him a supportive husband would not force me to choose. His fingers moved to his ring. 1 press. 2. Then he removed the red clip light from my desk, tested the battery, and placed it beside my phone. I thought he had accepted the compromise. The following day, I joined a venue walkthrough for a Bright Nest launch. Leah was there with Owen. His company had designed the caption screens and quiet zones. She greeted him by name, asked his opinion before mine, and waited while he explained why the main screen needed a different height. I had never seen Leah wait for anyone. Owen spoke without hesitation. The man who could barely finish an argument at home directed 6 technicians with simple sentences. Leah showed him a test clip and asked whether the captions preserved the speaker's meaning. He answered that access without context was another kind of exclusion. She glanced at me after he said it. I assumed he had been complaining again. A timid husband could become impressive when he found the correct department to protect him. It did not change who controlled our home. Nina stopped adding ideas to the birthday chat. When Brooke asked who would hold the second phone, Nina waited 6 hours before saying she might arrive late. Valentina did not answer my final invitation. Martin still planned to watch. Brooke still wanted the contract. I counted the people who mattered and decided the room was full enough. The party began at 7 on Saturday. Gold paper fans covered the living room wall. Brooke placed 2 vertical phones on stands and clipped the small red light to the main one. Owen's lemon cake sat behind them, untouched. He wore a dark blue shirt I had bought him. He thanked guests at the door. He brought extra chairs from the garage. He checked the volume for our elderly neighbor. If anyone had looked only at him, they would have seen a normal birthday host. The content group knew better. Brooke arrived with a paper crown for me and a white card printed with a sentence about a husband knowing his place. Eli brought a soft kneeling pad but hid it under the rug so the floor looked bare on camera. Another friend, Tessa, filled a silver cup with water. She said the splash would catch the red light. I approved each detail. Owen saw the card beside the cake. He asked whether the stream was live and unedited. Brooke said the test audience needed real reactions. He asked how many reviewers had the link. I told him numbers were my job. His job was to enjoy his birthday. He touched his ring. 2 fingers. Calm face. Complete surrender. At 8, Brooke called everyone into the living room. 12 guests formed a wide half circle. Nina had not arrived. Valentina's chair stayed empty. The red light came on, and the phone screen showed a small live count rising in the corner. Brooke announced a marriage challenge. She asked which partner made the rules. The room pointed at me because my friends had practiced it. Owen stood beside the cake with his hands loose at his sides. Eli placed the paper crown on my head. Brooke asked Owen to kneel and present the card to his queen. He said no. The first silence lasted 2 seconds. I know because I watched the timer on the phone. 2 seconds can destroy a clip. I laughed and told everyone he always needed to be asked twice. The group joined me. Eli tapped the hidden pad with his shoe. Tessa shook the silver cup. Someone behind the camera made a low chant using Owen's name. He looked at me and asked whether I wanted this done to him in our home on his birthday. That question tried to hand me responsibility for the whole room. I refused it. I told him nobody could humiliate a person who knew how to laugh at himself. Then I moved the phone closer and said he was making the scene awkward. Owen went down on 1 knee. The room cheered. He lowered the second knee without being asked. Eli slid the card into his hands. Brooke adjusted my crown. The red light painted a small, hard circle on Owen's wet-looking eyes, though no water had touched him yet. I felt tall. I will not soften that. There was pleasure in seeing my friends close around him because they did what I had wanted to do for years. They made his silence look small. They turned his careful dignity into a prop. Every laugh told me that I was not the difficult one in our marriage. He was. Brooke told him to raise the card. He did. Eli placed the side of his dress shoe against the back of Owen's jacket and gave a small push for the camera. Owen caught himself with one hand. The crowd shouted. Tessa tipped the silver cup over his hair. Water ran down his forehead and into his collar. Another friend pressed the paper pointer beneath his chin and moved his face toward the phone. I laughed until I had to steady the camera with both hands. Owen stayed on the rug. Water fell from his jaw. The card bent between his fingers. He did not look at Eli or Brooke. He looked at me. For one breath, nobody spoke. Then I told him to smile. He did not. The first take ended when Brooke lowered her phone. Several guests moved back. Our neighbor stared at the floor. Tessa set the empty cup beside the cake. Eli said the push had looked perfect. I checked my recording. The angle was wrong. My shoulder blocked the card, and Owen had turned his face before the water hit. He looked tired, not pathetic. A tired man might earn sympathy. I needed the audience to laugh. I said we had to do it again. Owen remained on his knees and asked what was missing. I told him the first take made him look like a victim. He asked what I wanted him to look like. The room waited. Brooke's phone was still live, but she had hidden the comments to keep us focused. I told him I wanted him to look like a man who finally understood his place. Eli made a sound of approval. Brooke raised her phone again. Tessa reached for another glass. Our neighbor quietly left. 2 other guests followed her. I watched the door close and decided older people always became uncomfortable when a joke found an edge. Owen asked me to stop the live, tell the room he had never agreed, and let the birthday continue without cameras. He said that was the last offer he could make inside our marriage. I answered with the one thing he could not deny. For years, I had begged him to speak before every feeling became a system. I had asked for warmth and received calendars. I had cried beside a man who repaired the lamp while I was still talking. He had made me lonely inside a stable life. Owen did not argue. I used his silence as permission to continue. I said that if he had been a real partner when I needed one, my friends would not be the people making me feel alive now. Then I turned the main phone back toward him and told Brooke to reset the shot. I checked my messages for Nina. No reply. 1 empty chair. 2 open cameras. More viewers joining every second. Owen slowly placed the bent card on the rug. His fingers rose to his wedding ring. They pressed the plain edge once, then twice. He looked at Brooke and told her to keep filming. I smiled because even his final boundary had collapsed. Martin was watching. The test audience was growing. By morning, Brooke would have her contract. I would have my promotion, and everyone would know which person in our marriage had finally learnt to obey. Owen stood. Water darkened the shoulders of his shirt. He picked up the main phone, but he did not end the stream. He turned the comments back on and placed the phone on its stand. The screen filled so quickly that I could not read one line before the next replaced it. The live count was not a small test group. More than 18,000 people were watching. Brooke reached for the phone. Owen asked her to leave it where it was because she had promised an unedited reaction. Then he began with the question he had asked at the rooftop launch. Did Brightnest save original footage? Martin's verified work account appeared in the comments. So did Leah's. Owen reminded the camera that Brooke had said raw reactions were gold. He named the creator form he had used after the first clip. He named the message where Leah asked for releases. He named the rehearsal recording where he had refused while I held the phone. He named the private stream that I had sent above Leah after she declined my pitch. No new accusation entered the room. Every piece had passed through my hands. My thumb pressed the side button on my phone, but the screen only went dark in my palm. The other phone kept filming. Leah posted 1 sentence and pinned it. Consent had been requested, refused on record, and overridden by the employee leading the proposal. That was all. The safety woman I had called cautious did not call me cruel. She did not need to. The video showed me ordering a second take because my husband did not look pathetic enough. Brooke stepped away from the stand. Her face changed first. She told the live audience that the scene had been Camilla's concept and that Room Rules had trusted my professional guidance. She used my full name. Then she said the account would cooperate with both brand reviews. I asked her what she was doing. She ended our planned partnership before the stream ended. Eli removed his shoe from the rug as if the floor itself had become evidence. Tessa put the silver cup behind the cake. Neither looked at Owen. They left through the side door while Brooke continued explaining that she had believed he agreed. Owen asked her to replay the moment he said no. She did not. The comments had already repeated it for her. Martin wrote that the Bright Nest proposal was withdrawn and my access would be paused before Monday. Brooke's current sponsor posted that its relationship with Room Rules was under immediate review. The room did not turn against me with shouting. It moved away from me by inches. A guest took her coat. Someone lowered the music. The empty space around Owen widened until he was the only person nobody was touching. He pressed 2 fingers against his ring one final time. Then he removed it and placed it beside the bent paper card. He told me his silence had been a failure in our marriage. He also said silence was not consent, and restraint was not surrender. Each time he touched the ring, he had stopped trying to win the argument and written down what happened while the details were exact. Those notes led to the creator reports. The original files supported them. Leah had connected the dates during the venue walkthrough, and the private live gave Brightness the last fact it needed without Owen adding a single word to my performance. He had not ruined my story. He had let me finish it without an edit. I tried to explain that the push was staged. Leah replied that the second take was not. I said Owen had chosen to kneel. Martin answered that the recording contained his refusal. I said Brooke had designed the stunt. Brooke pointed at the campaign deck with my name on the first slide. Every door I tried belonged to a person I had already placed on the other side. Nina's chair remained empty. A petition for dissolution arrived 4 days later, with a property conference scheduled for September. I moved into Valentina's spare room because Owen remained in the house where the filming occurred. My quarterly bonus was cancelled, and the campaign income I had counted on never existed. Nina returned my spare key by mail, while the rest of the group removed me from every private chat. Brooke lost her sponsor, deleted 3 months of prank videos, and posted an apology that named me as the professional who approved the birthday concept. Brightness dismissed me after its review, and searches for my name began with the clip of me asking for a more pathetic second take. I still believe Owen made loneliness feel reasonable because he never knew how to hold pain without organizing it. I was right about that part. What I cannot do is make the recording say his weakness forced my hand. I wanted a room full of people to prove I stood above my husband. They did exactly what I allowed, then stepped away before the water dried. The little red clip light sits on my sister's shelf, still fixed at the angle I chose. The last frame it lit was the place where Owen stopped kneeling for me.